Thank you for taking a moment to learn a little bit about the Cortina Method. I want to start by sharing what the vision is. The vision for the Cortina Method is to create an army of healers who will heal, inspire, and invigorate 1 million people with unparalleled outcomes and optimal guest service. So people ask, what is the Cortina Method? The Cortina Method is a way of resolving PTSD and other disturbing emotions, thoughts, and behaviors without people having to relive any pain. It's a brain-based healing methodology firmly rooted in neuroscience for effective and efficient outcomes. I often get asked, does it require medication? The simple, straightforward answer to that is no. The Cortina Method, or TCM as an acronym, TCM is this brain-based healing methodology that's very holistic in nature. So there's no medications, there's no light bars, there's no electrodes, there's no hookups of any sort. People will ask, what does the process look like? Well, if you were a fly on the wall during a TCM visit, it would look like a conversation between two people where eventually the conversation becomes a little bit more one-sided. In other words, the Cortina Method practitioner is actually going to do most of the talking. So this idea of a therapist sitting back and saying, well, how do you feel about that? And what do you think about that? Or when you think about that, how does that make you feel? Yeah, no, not so much any of that going on. I mean, we need to hear from our guests in the beginning to get a good, clear sense of what there is to resolve. And at a certain point, that shifts. And it's going to be the TCM practitioner doing about 90% of the talking the remainder of the visit. So there's no expectation, no prerequisite, no requirement that anybody has to relive any pain or just recite over and over and over what they've been through. It would look like a conversation between two people. You would also see really strategic and intentional movements. We know that trauma can be stored in the body. And so in the Cortina Method, we get up out of the chairs and we engage in physical movements that are very strategic and intentional in nature so that we can resolve any trauma that might be lingering in the body. There'll be the use of brain-based language. You know, language has an impact, and language resonates on our brain at all levels, either for the good or for the not so good. Well, in the Cortina Method, there is high-level learning on using precise brain-based language so that the brain can update and optimize in ways that are productive, beneficial, and desirable. You would see experiences that look sort of meditative in nature, things that would be very calming or soothing to the nervous system. So again, once more, no expectation for people to be amped up. And this is what it would look like. It would look like a conversation that becomes, more so one person doing most of the talking the remainder of the visit, physical movements, brain-based language, and, some meditative kind of nervous system calming activities taking place. I'll often get asked, well, how long is the treatment for PTSD? Well, in the Cortina Method, we can get PTS resolved in as little as a single visit. Maybe sometimes two. A single visit is not uncommon at all. Now, I understand that if I were to say, oh, maybe it would take 5 or 7 or 10 treatments, that actually might be more well received. There might be less eyebrows getting raised when they hear about this, how efficient the process and the outcome is. And I thought about this. That might be better received, but I thought, no, this is what's happening. We are getting people to get PTSD resolved in as little as a single visit. And anyone who's experienced it, who's been on the receiving end of this, will tell you it's absolutely the case. Speaking of that, what about the effectiveness rate? So we're seeing effectiveness rates of 90% plus, which to me means two things. One is full transparency. It's not 100%. Nothing is. Anyone ever tells you something's 100%, watch out anyway. The other thing it tells me is it has a higher effectiveness rate than anything I've ever seen, studied, or practiced in this field. So is TCM only used to treat trauma or PTSD? What other areas can it treat? Well, we can treat PTSD, trauma, addictions, anxiety, guilt, anger and resentment, limiting beliefs, physical pain in the body, and more. Can TCM be done virtually, or is it only an in-person experience? It can absolutely be done virtually, and what we found is that the effectiveness rate, whether it's done in person or virtually, are actually the same. So the effectiveness rate does not get bothered at all by the delivery, whether it's in person or virtual. Thank you for taking a few moments to learn a little bit more about the Cortina Method. Whether you're somebody who's looking to get trained in this approach so you could bring this healing to those that you serve, or you're somebody who's looking to be a recipient of it to receive your own profound transformation and healing, we're here for you. Thank you again.